What is up, YouTube? Live via satellite here, and today we are talking Kingdom. In particular, guys, today we are discussing whether or not Hara took things too far. Alright guys, so after the recent batch of chapters, after Shin died, there's been a lot of debate and controversy amongst the Kingdom community. It seems like people are really deeply divided on these issues. Either some people really love what's happened, or some people really hate it. And I'm gonna tell you right now, you're not wrong in either case. I mean, I can sympathize with the people who hate it. Because at first glance, all this may seem like a radical departure from the type of stuff that we're used to in Kingdom, right? And it would seem as though Hara has crossed over a line that he's never crossed over before. But today, guys, I plan on sharing with you guys some things that you may have never even known about Kingdom. And I plan on showing you exactly why I think that Hara didn't cross the line. He may have tiptoed on it a bit, but I wholeheartedly believe that he stayed within the boundaries and rules of the universe in which he created. But before we jump too deeply into that stuff, guys, I did want to give you my own opinion of how I felt about these chapters. And to be honest, guys, I actually loved it. I know, shock of the year, right? But honestly, what I loved about it were two things. One, that it was unpredictable, and two, that these chapters were like an emotional roller coaster. Now, when it comes to the first point, whether you loved it or hated it, Shin dying was totally unpredictable. It threw everyone for a loop. I mean, Hara could have easily went the safe route and had Shin go into a coma or whatever like that. But I thought it was a ballsy move, and when you see how it winds up all playing out, I think he actually made the right move. Because putting it simply, guys, it was just way more interesting. Had Shin went through the typical defeating the big bad boss of the arc and then lying unconscious due to such a strenuous battle, it would have been so predictable, and I don't think people would have been nearly as entertained. Because let me tell you something, whether you loved this or hated this, you were definitely entertained. You were definitely checking in every week to see what was happening. And the main reason was you had no idea what to expect, which was great. Like, the entire thing from beginning to end was a crazy ride. Like I said, it was an emotional roller coaster. Seeing Shin die, seeing how his whole unit responded to that, not knowing how in the world he was gonna come back. Seeing Kyoukai ready and willing to give her life for Shin, which a lot of people were afraid was actually gonna happen. I mean, we all knew that Shin was coming back. We knew that because of chapter 1. But Kyoukai didn't have that type of safeguard, so we had no clue what to expect, which was another awesome part about this batch of chapters. Like, when was the last time you felt this sense of danger, this sense of like suspense, when you literally feared that maybe one of your favorite characters in the series could actually die? For me, I'm not gonna lie, when I was reading these chapters, I was scared to death that Kyoukai might die. But then at the end, I wound up being relieved and thankful that our other boys saved the day. So yeah, when I look back at this mini story arc, I think Hara did an excellent job, man. I think he told a good story. And I think most people at the core can agree with that. The problem comes in where I think people believe that this is a good story, just not a good story for the world of Kingdom. Because they think that these chapters may have delved too deep into the realm of fantasy. And some people even think it's just quite simply an ass pull. And the simple fact of the matter here, guys, is that neither one is actually the case. There seems to be this notion that because Kingdom is a war manga, that it is super realistic. And even though this is just false on so many levels, I'm not even gonna address that. What we're gonna talk about here today, guys, is just the spirit realm. And this is where I think people get confused, because there was no one out here shooting Kamehamehas, there weren't dragons descending from the sky, fairies weren't flying around sprinkling pixie dust. We've simply ventured into the spirit realm, which Hara has already shown us in this manga multiple times exists. And while some people may think that venturing into the spirit realm is a new thing, this to me is something that's been going on since the very beginning of the series. And I'm not just talking about the stuff that pertains to Hoken and Kyoukai. We know that their powers are attached to the spirit realm, but we never really see it, with the exception of Kyoukai being in like a deep dive, or the fact that she talks to her sword Ryokusui. We rarely ever see deeply into the spirit realm. And the reason I say rarely is because I believe that there was an instance early in the series where we actually already ventured into the spirit realm. And that was with none other than the king of Chin himself, Sei. Yes, that's right, Sei. Sei is actually one of the more spiritually gifted characters in the entire series, but him being in possession of this gift is also something that I think very few Kingdom fans have actually paid attention to. And the reason I believe we've already been to the spirit realm is because during the Escape from Zao arc, we literally see Sei have to battle for his life in that realm. Because if you remember, we learned a lot about the Battle of Chohei during this time, and how the people of Zao cursed the Qin, mainly due to the fact that Hakuki, the commander-in-chief of the Qin forces at that time, decided to bury 400,000 Zao prisoners of war alive. And what happens a few months after that? Sei is born, right? But what's interesting is that during this arc, it looks like Sei is not only tormented physically by the Zao, but it appears that he's also being tormented by the spirits of the people who were buried alive during the Battle of Chohei. And these guys are pissed. They're not going to let Sei go and become king without a fight. And this fight reaches its climax in chapter 79 entitled Ghost, where in this chapter and spilling over into chapter 80, thanks to Sheikah's help, Sei is able to finally break free from these ghosts. But the thing is, after reading this story that takes place between Sei and the spirits, it's hard to really tell, due to the way Hara wrote it, whether or not this actually happened or whether Sei was going insane. And I'll admit, myself included, I thought for the longest that Sei had just lost his mind here. I mean, even Sei himself says at one point that he has a hard time distinguishing reality from dreams. And Sheikah at another point reinforces this when she's telling Sei that everything he's seeing is just an illusion, that the spirits don't exist. So initially when reading this story, it's kind of easy to lean toward the side of mental illness when it comes to Sei's issue here. That is, of course, until we get to the ceremony when we finally see Sei crowned as king. And this is where it all comes together, because it's here where we find out just how in tune with the spirit world that Sei actually is. While at the exact same time, we see another character finding out for, it appears, the first time that she's sensitive to the spirit realm as well. And her role is vital, because with her here seeing and hearing all the things that she does, it lets us know without a doubt the things that Sei's experiencing are actually happening and not just taking place in his mind. And this woman is none other than the late Sekio's wife, Rui. Now, during the ceremony, after Sei has finally been crowned king, we see a scene where Rui is, asking Sekio if he sees that his brother has finally been crowned king. Not expecting to really get an answer from her dead husband. But we see just how shocked she is when she actually hears someone say, "So it would seem." And it's obvious that this is a first time thing for her, because she's looking around like, what was that? And the thing that Hara did here that's pretty cool is that he actually changes up the dialogue bubble so that you know it for a fact when people are speaking from the spirit world. And it continues in the next scene as we see spirits of light coming down and speaking with Sei. And these appear to be kings from the past, telling Sei that he has their blessing and to follow the path that he has laid out in his heart, and to be true to his beliefs, and that they'll be watching over him. Finishing with our son, which is pretty much the giveaway that these are Sei's forefathers. But these spirits don't seem to bother Sei at all. In fact, I'd have to say it looks like he's pretty comfortable with this. In comparison to how Rui was acting, this seems pretty commonplace for Sei, as he just says thank you to the spirits. Now, me personally, I believe that this was it for the spirits of the kings. I think they just came to bestow their blessing on Sei. Because about 10 chapters later, when Ryofui and Sei are going at it, I think the spirits that are talking to Sei then are actually different spirits. So in chapter 425, after Ryofui's done explaining the way he would handle the warring states after he became king, we begin to see Sei surrounded by the spirits of Chohei. And as it seems like Sei's beginning to become very disheartened, we all of a sudden hear another spirit tell him it's okay. And Rui sees that the king is all of a sudden surrounded by purple orbs of light. And we see Sei being told, if it's you, you can do it. Tell him with conviction that he is wrong. And in the next chapter, as Ryofui's talking, we're seeing it from Rui's perspective that no one else can see what's going on. Not Ryofui or anyone else in the room. which would explain why Sheikah couldn't see what was going on with Sei back in the earlier chapters. But as the chapter goes on and we get to the point where Sei tells that he believes that the true nature of mankind is that of light, it's here where it's suggested that the purple orbs that have been going around Sei is actually the spirit of Sheikah. And as he goes on with his speech about the light and how it's inherited and passed down, we actually see the spirit of Sekio actually touch Rui's shoulder. And even though we get all the positives about the light in his speech, Eisei doesn't leave out the darkness. The spirits of Chohei actually represent this darkness, because that darkness, as we've seen through Mangoku, can be passed on as well, just as easily as the light can, which is the main reason that Eisei wants to abolish warfare, period. And yeah, I suggest you guys go back and read these chapters yourself because I'm really doing it no justice. But even at the end of this speech, we see as Ryufui is staring at Eisei, he gets the slightest glimpse into the spirit world, and it looks like the others get a glimpse as well, to the point that Ryufui has to actually wipe his eyes because he can't believe what he's seeing. All this to me easily proves that the ghosts that Eisei was dealing with at the beginning of this manga weren't just in his head, they were actually real. I mean, we've even seen another spiritual character, Mangoku, use the spirits of Chohei in battle. There was one point where they were literally holding Shin down. This fight was the weirdest and creepiest fight we had ever seen in Kingdom, but it's also through this fight that Shin actually realized why Sei had his goal, and why he needed to be his unbreakable sword. But Shin also had no problem letting Mangoku know that he was disgusting for allowing these ghosts to cling all over him day and night. But as he sends him to finally rest in peace, he lets him know that he will never allow something like Chohei to happen ever again. Which is why, even though Mangoku says he will become part of the darkness, still keeps his eye on whether Shin is keeping his word. So guys, I say all that to say this. The spirit realm stuff has been there since the beginning of the manga. And if somebody like Eisei can travel into the spirit world, then to me it makes perfect sense for someone like Kyoukai, who is actually trained in this stuff, to also be able to enter the spirit realm. Especially when she does it literally every time she fights. I mean, come on, her dance is literally called the priestess dance, where she is like basically contacting the gods through a sword she speaks to. So if I'm gonna give anybody a pass to go into the spirit world, it's definitely gonna be Kyoukai. But Hara didn't even just drop the ball there and give her that easy pass, right? He even has Shoni mention in Kyoukai's flashback the laws, which is important because we heard about this training in earlier chapters. Back in chapter 94, we were introduced to the laws, and in chapter 95, we found out that the laws have been passed down through the Shiyu for over 1,000 years. So even the fact that Kyoukai came out with this technique can't be considered an ass pull. And you could tell that Hara had everything planned out even when it came to Shin's death, because he even points back to his earlier foreshadowing that he left us in chapter 550. When Kyoukai speaks of the technique of actually being able to share her life force, and when she brought up the fact that they'd have no chance in winning this battle unless they were willing to exhaust all of their strength to the point that they were standing at death's door. And even though they wound up being stairs, that's exactly where they found themselves. And yes, at the time, even I thought Kyoukai was like joking with Shin with the technique because I thought she just wanted to kind of like hold his hand and stuff. But again, that was great writing on Hara's part to hide something in plain sight. Looking back on the whole situation, it was kind of like a near-death experience to me. Yes, technically Shin did die. Hell, I mean, Sugan even checked the vitals. But coming back to life, which by the way can happen in real life, it's called auto-resuscitation, or also known as Lazarus syndrome. Makes me kind of lean that way, especially because if his foot had touched those stairs, yeah, he would have been dead for real. So yeah guys, hopefully I was able to explain some of this spirit realm stuff to you guys and hopefully make it make some more sense. I personally thought it was a fun bunch of chapters. Like, I didn't feel like we were wasting any time or like it was filler or anything. I mean, I thought it did a pretty good job in like building up drama. Like in those first chapters, seeing how the Hisshin unit reacted to the death of their captain, like just the simple fact that the entire army wasn't able to move was amazing to me. These guys have been through 16, 17 days of fighting at this point. They're hungry, they're tired, they've already lost countless comrades in this campaign. They're in dangerous enemy territory, and they seem to be on the cusp of being able to win if they can just take out Raboku. but these guys are willing to throw it all away. It means nothing to them if Shin is dead. Like, just seeing how emotional everybody was, like, you really got the vibe just how important Shin is to all of them. I especially felt sorry for like the Dukyo troops and like the social unit, because they've already been through it before, and it just made me feel like they'd have that emotion of like, not this again, you know what I mean? Just everything about this scene, even all the reactions, seeing like En throwing up, seeing Dene in like total denial, Bihei, Sugen dealing with the fact that Shin's really dead. We even get to see Taku-san making his way to the front, which I don't know about you guys, but that's an automatic 10 out of 10 for me. Seeing the old squad leader getting some screen time, how can you not love that? And even when we get to 10's like heartfelt speech, man. And listen, I know a lot of people want to hate on 10, but the speech was fire. The speech was fire. It just hit on so many levels. And I even love how Hara at the end of it has her say with tears streaming down her face, "Don't leave me behind." Because in a way it's symbolic to the reason she's on the battlefield in the first place. If you think about it, the reason she became a strategist was so that she wouldn't be left behind, so that she could be on the battlefield with Shin. Because as we see in chapters 52.5 and 101, being alone is the thing that Ten's always been trying to escape ever since her grandfather died. And when she found Shin and the others, she was finally able to escape that solitude. And we see that for Ten, the feeling of being alone is something that takes her back to that village. Back before she met Shin, back when her life was basically shit. So it just shows you how much Shin means to her, and we don't have everybody else's backstory, but you can almost imagine that most of the people in the He-Shin unit had that same type of background where before they met Shin, things just sucked. And then Kyoukai stepping in just to give the whole unit like that sliver of hope, and seeing everything she went through just to be able to save Shin, to the point that she was willing to sacrifice her own life. This is like the epitome of like a ride or die chick. I mean, this is another thing I think Hara wanted us to see. He wanted to push forward the love story between Kyoukai and Shin. And I thought it was cool that Shoni was the one that Kyoukai got to discuss all this stuff with, because it's like they're getting to have this moment as sisters, and Shoni is really able to help Kyoukai start to realize how she really feels about Shin. Even the appearance of Hyo in this was like pretty significant to me, because this is happening like right before Shin reaches general status. Like, it almost kind of makes me feel like we're at like the halfway point of the story, right? Like, we see Hyo at the beginning of the story before Shin's even a soldier, and now we're checking in with him again right before Shin becomes a general, and you know we're definitely gonna have to hear from him again toward the end of the story. And just like with Kyoukai having Shoni around, it made perfect sense that Hyo was the one who was there for Shin, trying to help jog his memory a little bit, moving the stairs from here to there, which was, by the way, one of the things that kind of bothered me. Why does my boy Shin have to have red stairs? Yeah, but even though the stairway to hell pissed me off, it was more than made up for when we got to see our boys Shosa and Kyoukai come in for the save. Why I really loved this so much was because, one, it just made their deaths feel that much more meaningful, that they were able to help out Kyoukai in death like that. And two, I just felt like it was a good final goodbye, especially for Kyoukai, man. Because I remember when he got killed by Hoken, I was just thinking like, man, even though he's not like this major character or anything, he was one of the original members of the He-Shin unit. And he was one of the more recognizable characters. And for him to get taken out so quick the way he did, it was like kind of caught me off guard, to be honest. It just didn't feel like a good send off. It kind of felt dirty. It felt like he got like shortchanged or something. But for some reason, this here just made me feel a whole lot better about it. And even though Kyoukai was spared from certain death, we see that saving Shin's life did come with a price. Shoni lets us know that not only has Kyokai's lifespan been shortened, but now the embers of her life are actually weaker too, meaning that there are certain techniques she won't be able to do anymore, but more importantly, that she'll never be able to pull off this technique again. And I thought this was really smart on Hara's part to tie up all these loose ends, letting us know that this was a one-time thing for Kyoukai, that we shouldn't expect to see her be able to do anything like this in the future. And two, that she didn't make it out of this unscathed. She had to pay a significant price, even though she got to keep her life, however much of that actually remains. In a way, she'll be a much weaker version than that of her previous self. And listen, I'm not complaining, because I'd rather have that than a dead Kyoukai. And even though we find out from Shoni that there's actually two pieces of good news, we're going to reserve that for talking about in the next video. So there you have it, guys. Those are my thoughts on these chapters. I wanted to make this video to give you guys a different perspective so you can see these chapters from a different point of view. But anyway, guys, let me know what your thoughts were about these chapters, and please leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and feel free to share, comment, and subscribe. Peace out.